The billionaire's hand froze in midair. The pen hovered just above the paper, trembling slightly. 17 employees fired that month. Deals worth millions closed without a thought. Rivals crushed. Negotiations won before the other party even realized they were losing. People whispered in boardrooms, "Frank Cole is a man without a heart." And maybe he was. He had earned the reputation, carved it with years of ruthless decisions, a sharp mind, and a complete lack of mercy. Yet now, he couldn't breathe. The laptop screen glowed in front of him, showing the security footage from his penthouse kitchen. The new maid moved slowly, wiping down the marble countertops. Nothing unusual. Her movements were careful, polite, almost invisible. And yet, something froze Frank in his tracks, something he had not expected to see, not after 20 years. The ring. Not gold, not diamond, just a rough copper wire twisted around a small, dull blue glass shard. Frank's chest tightened, his breath caught. His hand shook slightly as he pressed pause, because he had made that ring, with his own hands, 20 years ago, in an orphanage, for a little girl he had promised to marry. And now, she was standing inside his home, his empire, his world. And somehow, the past had just walked in. Frank Cole owned more real estate than most. People could imagine. Half of the East Coast's most valuable buildings were under his name. His penthouse overlooked Manhattan, wrapped in glass and silence, with cold marble floors and expensive art that no one dared touch. From that height, the city seemed small, insignificant. People were replaceable. Friends even more so. Each morning, Frank followed the same rigid routine, black coffee, bitter and hot, scrolling financial updates across his laptop, reading security reports noting every minor incident in his building. Emotions were a liability. Mercy was a mistake. Trust, expensive. That was how Frank survived. That was how he won. Yet lately, he felt restless. Even surrounded by luxury, sleep avoided him. Even in silence and glass, he felt hollow. And now, a simple ring had cracked something deep inside him. It reminded him of a world he had tried so hard to forget. A world without money, without power. A world where promises mattered more than deals, where small acts of kindness were worth more than millions in the bank. Her name was Elena, quiet, efficient, almost invisible to everyone else in the penthouse. She never complained, never drew attention, always working, always polite, always there. Frank had barely noticed her during the first few days. She moved through the house like a ghost, carrying trays, wiping counters, dusting shelves. But today, she had stopped him in his tracks. He replayed the footage again, paused it, zoomed in. The ring never left her finger. Not while she cleaned, not while she organized shelves, not even during her brief moments of rest. It was old, simple, out of place in a house full of diamonds and gold, and yet it was priceless. Frank closed the laptop. His hands shook. 20 years of wealth, power, and control. Nothing mattered more than that single small copper ring. 20 years earlier, Frank had nothing. No family, no money, no future. The orphanage had been cold in winter and cruel all year round. Food was scarce. Kindness rarer than a sunny day in the city. Children learned quickly, fight or disappear. Frank fought, every day, every moment, every bite of bread. But Elena, she was different. She smiled when others cried, shared food when others stole, believed when others gave up. She had a light in her eyes that seemed impossible in that place. One afternoon, behind the orphanage, Frank found a piece of broken blue glass. He bent copper wire around it using a rock. The result was ugly, imperfect. but it was something real, something beautiful, something hopeful. He gave it to her with trembling hands and whispered words he barely understood himself. "I'll marry you one day. I promise." She had believed him. And that night, for the first time in his life, Frank felt rich, because hope was priceless. Weeks later, everything changed. Frank was adopted by a wealthy family. Elena was left behind. There were no goodbyes, no letters, no second chances. Frank told himself survival mattered more than promises, and slowly, he forgot. Or at least, he tried. Years passed, money grew, power followed, deals became bigger. Rivals became smaller, and the world bent to his will. But promises, they never truly disappear. The memory of Elena, the ring, the promise. It lingered quietly in a corner of his mind, waiting, until now. Back in the present, Frank observed Elena from a distance. She avoided his eyes, kept her head down, moved quietly among the other staff. She did not recognize him. Why would she? The boy she had known no longer existed. The poor, skinny orphan boy who had given her a rough ring. He had become Frank. Cole, billionaire. And yet, she still wore the ring, every day, every night, like a promise that had never expired. Frank felt a strange mix of fear and longing. A part of him ached for the girl she had been, and another part feared what the woman she had become would do when she realized the truth. He remembered her, laughter, her small hand clasping his, the quiet way she trusted him completely. He felt the years of distance, the choices he had made, the empire he had built. None of it mattered now. That evening, Frank asked for her file. No family, no background, a lifetime of struggle, every detail matched. The ring was not a coincidence. It was her. Alone in his penthouse, Frank stared at the ceiling. For decades, he had controlled everything: deals, buildings, people, money. But now, he could not control his own heart. For the first time in decades, he cried. Not for money lost, not for power gained, but for a promise broken and a love he had buried under years of ambition. The next morning, Frank did the unthinkable. He canceled meetings, delayed deals, ignored calls. He watched Elena work, not as a maid, but as the girl who once believed in him. For the first time, Frank felt something stronger than control. Regret. And perhaps hope. He approached her slowly, not with the arrogance of a billionaire, but with the humility of a boy who had once promised. Every step felt like a lifetime. Every breath heavy with memories. And in that moment, everything changed. Money can buy comfort. Power can buy silence. But promises? They wait. Sometimes for decades. Sometimes until the right moment. And when they return, they change everything. Frank Cole owned the world, but one simple copper and blue ring reminded him of the only thing he ever truly lost. A promise made by a poor orphan, and a love that never faded. Even surrounded by the empire he had built, surrounded by wealth, fame, and respect, Frank realized the most valuable thing in life could not be bought, earned, or conquered. It could only be remembered, and now it had returned to him.